Okay, and I'll share my screen.
So sorry, may I request Faniraj, you can go on mute. I think there is still some that statics. Yeah, I think it's fine now. Perfect. You can unmute if you want to ask a question, Faniraj.
Okay. Namaste, everyone, and welcome to lecture 15. So today I will talk mainly about the stories, the stories and the wisdom behind the stories, because there is a depth of knowledge that exists behind the stories that gets lost in translation somewhere. So yeah, we'll go through that. So I'll get my pointer. Okay. So starting off with Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha and our Shanti mantra. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu Mavitvishavaheh. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we all be protected and nourished with knowledge. May we make the effort for the capacity for knowledge to take place. May what is studied by us be clear. Let us not have any misunderstanding. Om, peace, peace, peace. So the agenda for today, Madhu will go over the previous assignments from lecture 13 and no 12, 13, and 14. And then like I said, I will go over the stories that exist, the plethora of stories that exist within our ancient literature. And we'll obviously leave time for any Q&A. Madhu, you want to
Yes,
share your screen?
yes. Let me share my screen.
1 second. I'll stop sharing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So this is the assignment from 2 classes back. So what we had asked was, when is the next Adhika Masa? Can you illustrate it using a diagram? Many of you had answered it. Thank you. Correctly. The next Adhika Masa is Adhika Jeshta, and this will happen between May 17th and June 15th, 2026. It will be followed by the Nija Jeshta. And why does it happen on this date? You could illustrate it using a simple diagram. So this is going to happen during the Parabhava Samvatsara, which is 2026, 27. So what is the sequence of events that will happen is during March 19th, the Samvatsara itself starts at the Chaitra. So in a regular course, what will happen is there will be an Amavasya followed by a solar transit into the next sign, followed by another Amavasya, and so on, right? So this is what is happening. So there is a solar transit on April 14th into Mesha, and there is an Amavasya on April 17th. There is a solar transit into Rishabha on May 15th, and then there is a Amavasya on May 17th. So far, so good. This is the normal course of events, right? So on May 17th, both the sun and moon are in Rishabha. There is a new month that is beginning, right? And before the next solar transit happens into Mithuna, another Amavasya is happening. So the sun is actually stuck in Rishabha, and the moon has come back and joined it before the sun has moved to Mithuna. Right? Now, this by definition will be the Adhika Masa. Right? So hence this particular Masa where the sun is, let's say, locked into Rishabha in between two, while two Amavasyas are happening, is the Adhika Masa, is the Adhika Jyeshta, right? And then after this second Amavasya has happened, only the solar transit out happens to Mithuna, right? So two Amavasyas between May 17th and June 14th, leading to an Adhika Jyeshta Masa, leading to Parabhava Samvatsara. And then this will be followed by the actual Jyeshta, which is this is the Nija Jyeshta Masa. And after that, again, the order is restored, right? There is an Amavasya, solar transit, Amavasya, solar transit, and so on. Right? So this is so May 17th to June 15th is going to be the next Adhika Masa. So that's the first question to the answer to the first question. The next one is a simple multi-choice. Bharatiya astronomy features two distinct concepts of a yuga. What is the fundamental difference in purpose between the 5-year yuga cycle and the grander 4-yuga cosmological system? The answer is the 5-year yuga is a calendrical tool for determining ritual timings, whereas the 4-yuga system is a cosmological framework describing the cycle of dharma. I think many of you have got it right? So the next one is more of a fun mathematical question. How would Aryabhatta encode the number 299799245 using this notation? What is the significance of this number? But maybe before we get into the solution, any idea what is the significance of this number? Can you take a guess?
Speed of light.
Correct. This is indeed the speed of light in meters per second, right? So if you just follow the Aryabhatta notation, you just have to follow the table. This gives you this particular phrase, Jala, Gini, Jushu, Jrishu, right? So wherever Aryabhatta wanted to refer to the speed of light, probably he would have used this particular phrase, right? And it's a very simple mathematical computation that you can just go right, and do it. So that's the next question. And the next question is, what is the last day of the current Samvatsara? What is the name and when is the Chandravana Yugadi for the next Samvatsara? The next, so this current Samvatsara, which is the Vishwavasu Samvatsara, the last day of that is March 18th, 2026, because by definition, the last day of any Samvatsara, which is also the lunar year, is the Falguna Amavasya. The next Samvatsara is going to be called Parabhava as per the 60-year Samvatsara cycle. The Parabhava follows the Vishwavasu. And then the next day is March 19, 2026, which is the Chaitra Shukla Pratipad, and that is when the next Samvatsara, which is the Parabhava Samvatsara, starts. And that is also when the Yugadi will be celebrated for the next Samvatsara, right? So for this question, you just need to look up these two particular tithis, and that would have given the answer, right? What is Brahma's lifespan? How do we arrive at that number? We have gone through this many times. Brahma's lifespan is 311.04 trillion years. I think we have gone through this quite a few times. It's a straightforward question, right? Okay, and just to kind of finish off our last week's assignment as well, I had asked for calculate the Panchanga for December 14th at the sunrise time in your location. Of course, the sunrise location differs for different people based on where your location is, and hence there will be small change in these values. But I have taken, like an arbitrary time, which is December 14th, which is today, 5:30 AST. I have not taken exactly the sunrise time, but that doesn't matter. And if you take the longitudinal values corresponding, it gives 172 and 238 for the moon and sun respectively. and all you need to do is just plug in the numbers. For example, the Tithi, uh, it gives you 2, 24. So one thing that you need to have done this particular assignment is the longitude of the moon is less than the longitude of the sun in absolute terms. So a 360 would have to be added in all your calculations to get it to a non-negative number. So for example, the Tithi calculation gives you 24.5, which means 24 Tithis are completed. The 25th is running. The 25th is the 10 plus 15, 15 being Purnima. The 10th from 15 will give you the Dasami, right? So, and since this number 25 is greater than 15, the Krishna, it is indicative of the Krishna Paksha. Now, if this number was less than 15, that would have been a Shukla Dasami, right? So I think it's a Krishna Dasami. Nakshatra, I think some of you had calculated as Chitra, which is right for your choice of time. But when I calculated for this particular time, it was still in Hasta. And you can see that it was on the very last portion of Hasta Nakshatra. So maybe if I had just moved it 1 hour forward, I would also got Chitra. But when I calculated, it is Hasta. It just divided by the 13 point longitude of the moon divided by 13.333, and you take the quotient, and so many nakshatras are completed, and the next nakshatra is running. Yoga, similarly, you add the longitudes of sun and moon. If the value crosses 360, you just subtract 360, convert it into minutes, which is in this case 3000 minutes. 3.75, which means 3 yogas are completed. Fourth is running, which is the which in my case happens to be the Saubhagya. I think some of you have calculated as Shobana for the time that you. So the yoga is also moved between the times that I calculated and some of you have calculated. Similarly, Karana. Karana also, it's Tithi divided by 2. So in this case, it gave me 49. So remove the nearest multiple of 11, which is 44, which is 5 Karanas have completed fully, and the sixth one had started. And in this case, it was Vanija Karana, right? When I calculated, again, I think it was Vishti when some of you had completed. So you just kind of summarize all that into the corresponding table. And typically this is used to, suggest good times for particular events based on the quality of the 5 different elements of the Panchanga, right? I think that is how the Panchanga is calculated. I think all of them are straightforward. The Karana is a little bit not so straightforward. So if any of you have any questions computing the Karana, you can kind of reach out to me offline, and I'll be able to assist with that, right? But the others one should be pretty straightforward. Just plug in the numbers into the formula, and you kind of get it, right? So with that, I think I'll stop this particular assignment discussion and hand it over back to Ajay for starting the next module. Ajay, back to you.
Okay, I'll reshare. Okay, you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
We can.
All right. So this was the agenda for today, and okay. So the objectives of trying to go through the stories. I mean, there are a huge number of stories within the literature of ancient India. Many stories actually are, as you will realize and see, actually represent astronomical events. However, one of the things is that the stories have continued, and the meaning behind the stories has been lost, and therefore the understanding of the story is not complete. And it's almost like this: the stories need the key of wisdom to unlock the stories, because without that key, the understanding is pedestrian at best. And then they remain as stories without the key. And once you open the lock of the stories, you realize the depth and the profundity that is behind the stories. And that's what we'll try to understand. I mean, analyze a few stories to reveal the scientific facts behind the stories, and we will understand that the stories were the primary methods of knowledge transmission because of the earlier oral tradition that existed. And so, like I said, many complex phenomena of astronomical origin, especially, that we will explore. And we will try to appreciate the fact that these stories are not merely stories, but they are a synthesis of science, culture, and spirituality. So there was a pedagogical need for these stories, a need for these stories to be transmitted. So there was first of all, there was a prevalence, a domination of oral tradition. And so the knowledge had to be transmitted and had to be memorized in some way, or needed to be memorable. And so these stories acted like mnemonic devices. So they were all this complex astronomical concepts of precision, lunar cycles, cycles of time, star position, nakshatra. So these were encoded into engaging narratives. So we had all these Puranic stories that were easier to remember than abstract facts or dry calculations. So they acted like these powerful mnemonic devices, and they acted as such for both scholars uh, in transmitting the stories from one generation of scholars to another, but obviously mainly for the public to understand, because it would be difficult for understanding the astronomical concepts as it is. And many of the public did not have a very clear access to formal, highly technical texts like Surya Siddhanta or Bharatiya or so on. Uh, they had a means of integration into everyday life. So because so many of the rituals, now, not only the religious rituals, but also things like the festivals which are dominated by the seasons, by the harvesting season, by the monsoons, and so on. So these stories acted like a continuous relevance for the continuation of this knowledge, for the transmission of this knowledge. So this is one slide that I kind of illustrated this. I borrowed it from Raj Vedant's slides. What he was trying to say, and what I completely agree with, is the fact that, for example, in today's world, you have a systems engineer, a PhD systems engineer who's discovering and developing uh, complex algorithms for the functioning of many different devices in the software area or the hardware area, for example. But these complex data analysis and calculations don't have to be known by the operators of these devices or these softwares or applications or whatever. So they only use the output coming from the complex algorithms developed and discovered by the engineer. Similarly, when you have the complex drugs that were actually studied quite extensively. I'm partially in that field, looking at different pathways of reaction and chemistry and how they affect the body, how they affect the reaction of the body to those chemicals, synthetic drugs, for example. So those are studied by these scientists, and they discover these new forms of treatment, and they are only implemented by the doctors. The doctors don't have to understand the complexity of the development of these drugs. So, just very similarly, the rishis and acharyas in our tradition uh, discovered and created this knowledge through through generations of observation, as you would see, and they were transmitted through one of the means being the stories. Of course, there was this these more complicated texts like the Bharatiya, but they were transmitted to the public through the stories, and the public didn't need to know all the complexities behind it. They were just practitioners. So, where do the stories come from? They are primarily in the different Puranas, many different Puranas, like we talked about a few classes ago, something like the Vishnu Purana, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Itihasa, the Mahabharata, Ramayana. Then, of course, there existed much more technical Siddhantic texts, Vedanga Jyotisha, Aryabhatiya, Surya Siddhanta. And so these stories not only emanated from the Puranas, but also emanated or also originated in many of these complicated texts. And this dual approach of a text existing which talked about the details, and at the same time the stories existing as a device for mass communication of this specialized knowledge. So this dual approach is what was unique about our tradition. But again, I think what is, like I said, is the key to these stories is the wisdom of knowing the background behind the stories, and that is important for us to know and for us to appreciate. Okay, so this is an image of a person looking at the northern sky and seeing some stars. So can you guess what he's looking at?
A great bear.
Okay, that's good. And anybody else? So we are looking at this star.
Gold star.
Sorry, at this star. Anybody can guess what that star is?
North Star,
Dhruva nakshatra.
Okay, so this is in obviously in Indian tradition known as the Saptarishi, and the Saptarishi are pointing to the pole star, Polaris. So if you see, this is the Saptarishi or the Great Bear, Ursa Major, and that is pointing. The last two stars here are pointing to the pole star or the Polaris, which is part of this constellation known also as Ursa Minor or Little Bear or Little Dipper, different names for it. So Polaris is what we are looking at, and Polaris is the North Star and also is Dhruva Tara. However, I've put it in brackets as being the current Dhruva Tara, and I'll go into the details of why is it the current Dhruva Tara. So the meaning of Dhruva is the immovable, and that's why we will go with the story of the immovable Dhruva. So the story is, everybody probably knows about the story. Dhruva was the son of King Uttanapad, and he married a second time. He married, his first wife was Suniti, and his second wife, apparently more beautiful, was Surichi. And Surichi did not really have a liking for Dhruva, and when she had her own son, so Surichi was Dhruva's stepmother, and when she had her own son, she would not allow Dhruva to sit on Uttanapada's lap. And she wanted her own son, and she believed that her own son was the more deserving heir to the throne, and therefore did not want Dhruva to sit on his lap and her son to sit there. So she said, because he was not born from her, he could not sit, and therefore caused a deep hurt to Dhruva. So Dhruva went and complained to his mother, Suniti. Suniti tried to tell him about the theory of karma and prarabdha, but obviously Dhruva was not consoled by that, or did not, and resolved to go to the forest. He said, okay, the only way I will understand, or I will pray to Lord Vishnu and ask for a place where no one can dislodge him, no one can insult him in that manner. So when he was in that meditative state, Narada Rishi saw him, and he tried to dissuade him from such tapasya, such hardship, and but Dhruva would not be dissuaded, and Narada really liked his sincerity and decided to help him. And so he guided him to the banks of the Yamuna River and taught him the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and to actually chant that to reach Bhagwan Vishnu. Dhruva then began his intense penance, focusing on Vishnu, very, very focused, single-pointed focus. We are saying the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva, and at that point, the penance was so intense that his austerity actually disturbed the gods. And this intensity of the meditation pleased Vishnu, who appeared before Dhruva and asked him for what can he grant him. And Dhruva was overwhelmed by the presence of Vishnu, and he basically said he didn't want anything, but later on said that he wanted a place of something that he could not be dislodged from. Vishnu heard him, granted his request, and said he will be placed in the center of the sky as a pole star, so all the other stars, including the Saptarishi, would revolve around him. And he also added that his mother, Suniti, would be nearby, would get a place nearby. Dhruva then returned to his kingdom. He became the king, ruled justly, and at the end of his life was elevated to the celestial position where he still shines as a symbol of unwavering devotion and determination. So that is the story that we probably are all familiar with. So what do we understand from this story? I mean, in general, people have understood this as being a story relating to the morals, relating to the dedication, the penance, the single-pointed focus, and so on. However, there is a lot of astronomical fact behind this. So let's see what that is. So how do we decode the story? First of all, Dhruvatara. So Dhruvatara actually represents the pole star as it is right now, the Polaris. And there, if you look at the constellation of the Great Bear or the Saptarishi, you will see that Saptarishi actually revolve around Dhruvatara, and so around the North Star. So Dhruva or Polaris is basically immovable, unmoving, and he is sitting fixed. And the Saptarishi is said to circle the Polaris. I mean, in this, it's the seasons which actually show that. But if you look closely, you can see that the circling happening almost every day. And these are also known as the star trails, and they go around the Polaris, which is at the center. So this is a camera that can capture it has to set at a long exposure, and you can capture the motion of the stars around the Polaris, around the pole star every night. So there is another aspect, and this is something that we also need to understand. It talks also about precision. And I think we have covered, Madhu has covered precision in the past. So just to recap, the Earth's axis gyrates. It's not because it is tilted at an angle, it moves at a wobble. And this wobble, the top of this motion takes about 26,000 years to complete one full circle. So this is precision. So it takes slightly less than 26,000 years to actually complete this entire rotation. And because this axis points to a different direction at different points of time, the star, which is the north, which represents the pole star, changes with time. So that's why the current pole star is Polaris, and that is we take the North Star, the fixed star as being Dhruv, but that changes with time. So yeah. I mean, we'll talk about this time as well, but this at around 2800 BCE, Thuban was the pole star, and we'll come to that. And in so many thousand years, another 12,000 years or so, the bright star Vega will become the North Star. And so around this time, will Polaris around 2100 AD or CE, Polaris will start moving away from being the North Star. So, how does the Dhruva story actually talk about precession, and helps us with archaeoastronomy? In Dhruva story, Vishnu gave him the request, granted him the request of being the pole star, and he also mentioned that his mother would be given a place nearby him. So if you look now, there is no companion to the current pole star. So this is the current pole star. This is a simulation done with the software planetarium of Stellaris. And you can see that there is nothing close to Dhruva or close to the pole star. However, if you go back to 2800 BCE, Thuban was the pole star. So the Polaris, which is the pole star now, was not the pole star then. Thuban was the pole star that time and had a nearby companion. So that is the dating that we can put on the Dhruva story, 2800 BCE. Now, what does that do? First of all, it gives you a very valid date where you had Suniti or this companion or the mother sitting next to the pole star or the North Star at that time. And it also kind of blows to smithereens the Western narrative that all the Puranas were composed, 500 CE, for example, or this whole myth of the Aryan invasion, Aryan migration theory. It's amazing how that is still in vogue and still being taught to Indian students of all syllabus. So then, what is Thuban? So Thuban right now is in a constellation known as Draco. Now, interestingly, Draco was also known as the Shishumara constellation, and in Vishnu Purana. And around 2800 BCE, plus minus 200 years, Thuban was the pole star. Okay, and it was actually a very, it was less than a degree from the pole. So the current Polaris is about, I think, less than, close to 5 degrees from the pole. So it also is not exactly the pole star, but Thuban was more accurately the pole star at that point. And it also, the whole Vishnu Purana's detail of Dhruva's mother staying with him matches very, very much the entire story. So again, just as a summary, the pole star is not constant because of the precession, and Polaris has been a pole star and will remain until it'll start drifting away, but will remain as a pole star till about this time period, and then there won't be a pole star between 3000 CE and 14,000 CE. So the Earth will be without a pole star, and then Vega takes over at around 14,000 CE. So this is the general change, and then you had this Thuban being the closest to the pole at this 2787 BC, and also had the companion. So that is the background, the astronomical detail behind this Dhruva story. So we go over to the next story now. Anyone can actually guess what? I'll put a list of the Western the names for so many different stars. So any guesses on what I'm trying to point to? Another clue.
Nakshatra Mandalam.
Yes, exactly right. These are 27 nakshatras, and so we have when the moon Chandra enters Ashwini, we have the first bright night after Purnima, and when it reaches Revati, we have Amavasya. By the way, Amavasya, actually, Vasya is staying, Ama is together. So staying together. So that's the staying together with the sun. So you're having a new moon. So these are all the nakshatras, and these are also, as we see in the story, known as the wives of Chandra. And we have Rohini, which is known as Chandra's favorite, which is also the Aldebaran, a star in the Taurus constellation. And we'll see why it is known as Chandra's favorite. So this again, the story, King Daksha gives his 27 daughters to Chandra in marriage, and it symbolizes Chandra's relationship with the constellations. I mean, that is the background, of course, but the story is that he gives 27 daughters in marriage to Chandra. But Chandra promises that he will be equal, spend equal time with all the wives. However, he becomes infatuated with Rohini and spends most of his time with her. And that enrages Daksha, who warns Chandra repeatedly, that he tells him that this is not right and this is not what you should be doing. But it doesn't affect him. He keeps on doing that. So Daksha then is angered by Chandra's favoritism and curses him to slowly waste away and lose his brilliance. And it is something he actually curses him to Shaya Roga, which is similar to that kind of condition where he's slowly waning away. So Chandra is very deeply concerned, obviously, and he starts to wane away, and he runs to Shiva, Mahadeva, and prays to Shiva and asks him to do justice to him. This is not where I want to be. So Shiva then is pleased with Chandra's devotion, and he says, okay, I can do one thing, I can partially lift the curse, but I cannot reverse it completely. So he says, okay, you will become very small, you will disappear, however, you'll grow back. And that is what is happening with Chandra. He continues to grow and continues to diminish in the 27-day cycle as he visits his 27 wives. So this is the story, and as most of we are aware of. What is the background to the story? So the 27 wives are the 27 nakshatra. So the moon, this is the background to the moon. So the moon going around the earth goes around with this background, all the nakshatras. it also, so that story provides a very clear understanding of this nakshatra cycle of the 27.3 days of the sidereal orbit. And it also gives you a nice story about the waxing and the waning of the synodic month. So sidereal, synodic, lunar phases, the entire thing is explained by this story. However, one question is, there are 27 nakshatras, but why 27.3 days? So that is an interesting, just in case you have that question in mind, and that is because the width of the nakshatra is 13 degrees 20 minutes, or 13.33, whereas the moon's average speed is a little bit slower than that. And so you have the time for the moon to cross one nakshatra is slightly more than a day. And therefore, you might actually say the moon is lazier than, so it takes him a little bit more than 27 days to cross all the 27 nakshatras. Okay, now the question is, why is Rohini considered his favorite? So we need to understand this concept of lunar occultation. So what is lunar occultation? Occultation is kind of like an eclipse. So when the moon is actually uh, completely covering the star, it is basically it is known as occultation. So when it goes in here and covers the star, you're covered. But then after some time, the star appears back as the moon moves away. So it's also known as the wink back effect. So only from a specific part of the earth you can actually see it, but it can vary depending on which part of the earth at what time can you see it. But it has been fairly well studied now. So what is it with Rohini? Rohini is also in the Western parlance known as Aldebaran in the constellation Taurus. It is close to the ecliptic, which is the sun's path, and it is actually located just 5 to 6 degrees from the ecliptic path, and so it every 19 years there is a preponderance, a lot of occultations that occur with Rohini. And we'll talk a little bit about the other nakshatras as well. So this is the background to the story, that because Rohini is occulted most by the moon because of his position. So we can say in the story, Chandra's favorite wife is Rohini. And then, of course, that leads to this the story going further to talk about the waning Krishna and Shukla Paksha as well. But this is always remaining, this eternal pull towards Rohini.
Ajay,
So,
I think
yeah.
Notadri sir has a question.
Yes, yes,
So I, I
yes.
I just have a point which is relating to moon and its exaltation in the Rohini Nakshatra. Even in Jyotisha, it is taken as that way. So that's the whole part, because in Rishabham, moon is considered exalted, and that is because of this occultation with Rohini, sir. I just wanted to mention that here.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, very good, very good. Thank you. So,
Ajay,
yeah.
with the time check as well. We are
Oh, yeah.
7 minutes.
Okay. Okay. What I'll do is I'll finish this story and then, yeah. One thing we talked about was that every 19 years. Now, what is this number 19 years represent? So if you look at the whole lunisolar calendar, we see that 19 years, after 19 years, you have the solar calendar and the lunar phases or the nakshatra coinciding. Why is that? And that is because if you do the math, you can see that or the days in a synodic month, uh, so there is almost equal to the 19 years in the days of the 19 years. If you say 1 year is 365.242, and one synodic month comprises so many days. So if you do that math, you see that there is a very minor difference between the 19 years and 235, 19 years between the moon and the solar phases. So this is known as the metonic cycle. Meton was a Greek astronomer, and this 19 he apparently talked about the metonic or talked about this 19-year cycle. However, I could not find a reference to it. I'm absolutely convinced that the ancient astronomers in India knew about this much before. Meton talked about it in 400 BC.
Yeah, this is why even today, every 19 years, your nakshatra and your birth date are the same, sir.
Exactly, exactly. So this is just an illustration of the moon and the sun and the ecliptic, and the fact that you have the ascending and descending nodes, which actually represent more of the eclipses. But if you look at the similar phenomenon of ascending and descending node in terms of nakshatra, you will see the same occultation or eclipse kind of phenomenon. And so this is the general ecliptic band, uh, and you see that the plane of the orbit of the moon is 5.1 degrees to the ecliptic of the sun. So these stars, these nakshatra are in that 0 to 6 degrees bandwidth, and if you see Rohini is just around that 6 degrees, and that is very close to the 5.1 degrees of the moon. So this is the general all the nakshatras, or the nakshatras which are in the occult, which occult more frequently than the others. And you can see that they all tend to be within that plus minus 6 degrees of the sun's ecliptic, which matches the 5.1 degree difference in the moon's path. And so you have the greatest number of occultations occurring with Rohini as compared to the others. So if you're beyond that 6 degrees, you are almost never occulting. So if you're far away, you will never occult at all. So Arcturus or Swati never occurs. So that's why this is just a summary of the occultation and why Rohini is considered the favorite, because it is most occulted, and the other nakshatra stars are either too far or too faint to actually observe the occultations. So this also talks about the fact that there's such great depth in the stories. So we are aware of the stories, but we have lost, we are not aware of the depth behind the stories. I mean, the fact that the entire lunar cycle from the 27 nakshatras, from the occultations, from the waxing and waning of the moon is explained by that one story is quite incredible. I mean, going over the stories and trying to understand them, trying to understand the scientific phenomenon behind them, it just blows my mind. So, and the depth, the profundity of the stories is amazing. So I will stop here. Just one thing, maybe as a teaser uh, for the next story. Can anyone? These are scenes from the same movie. And can anyone identify this movie? Another clue. This can.
Matrix?
Sorry.
The Matrix?
No, this came out in 2013 or
Gravity.
2014. And sorry?
So gravity. Oh, Interstellar, is it?
Yeah, exactly. This is the Interstellar, Christopher Nolan's movie. And why am I talking about this movie? It is because it talks about dilation of time. And that is what we will talk about in the next class, is the Kakudmi Devati story. But I'll talk about it in the next class, and let me know if there are any questions that you have. Yeah, I see Fani Raj's hand.
Yeah, Ajay, I probably missed it. What is the how is the Metonic year is referred to in Sanskrit or in our Puranas? What is
Yeah,
it called?
exactly. That's what I was very, intensely looking for. And I mean, I could not find it. Maybe somebody else knows, but I could not find that 19-year reference. But if anyone else knows, Madhu probably knows. But yeah, please, Madhu.
Uh, to be honest, I don't know the Sanskrit name corresponding to the Metonic cycle, but I do know that the 19-year cycle is when the exact coordinates of your birth, right? The tithi, vara, nakshatra, even the weekday, everything will align exactly.
Yes.
It's like the cycle. It's like almost like a new cycle starts, right? That much I know, but I do not know the Sanskrit reference of Metonic, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll take it as a homework and we'll see if we can
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
that.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I think first of all, fantastic session, right? Interesting, especially the occultation.
Yeah,
Uh,
unbelievable.
Very, very
I
how
nice.
it,
didn't notice 1 hour is went just went by.
yeah, how the occultation data actually supports with the stories. It's beautiful, right? But one thing that I wanted to, because we are in the mood for teasers, I also want to throw one teaser from my side, which is Ajay, if you can just go back to your very first slide about the quiz question where you showed Dhruva, right? Uh, I can follow it up with another question which is equally interesting, I guess. Where the two stars point to the Dhruva, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is the one now. Now, very interestingly, right? Uh, you see so this is the Big Dipper constellation, right? So if you see the handle of the Big Dipper, you see those three stars. If you draw an arc along those three stars, it also points to another very prominent star in the night
Yes.
sky, which is also one of the 27 nakshatras, right?
Yes.
So, can any of you take a guess as to what that star is? And there's a kind of an irony hidden in this entire thing, which
Swati,
is what I wanted to ask.
Swati,
Correct.
Yeah,
Swati.
exactly. Yes, it is actually it's actually a star called Arcturus. right? Arcturus is the 15th star in the list of nakshatra. It's also called Swati. Now, what is interesting about this is, see, Dhruva is the definition of immovability, right? I mean, Dhruva is fixed. I mean, it's so fixed that we even use the word Dhruva in Sanskrit to convey something that is very fixed, right? However, Swati is the complete anti-pattern of that. Swati is one of the stars which has the highest proper motion, right? So, what do we mean by proper motion? Suppose you take a photograph of the night sky today, right? The stars are all in a certain position, right? Now, if you take the photograph of the sky 20 years later, same portion, most of the stars would be in their positions. But there are some stars which exhibit a sideways motion with respect to our line of sight, right? Now, the measure of that sideways motion of the star is called as the proper motion, right? And Swati star happens to be one of them which has the highest proper motion. So it's a star which is always associated with mobility or moving, as opposed to Dhruva, which is associated with immobility and fixedness for like hundreds of tens of thousands of years. So I just wanted to point out that very interesting contrast, and I think Toths and Ram and others would also astrologically relate. The quality of Swati nakshatra is it's a very movable nakshatra, right? So much so that if you're actually planning travel, they actually recommend that you start travels in Swati. It is ruled by Vayu, Tattva, which is also associated with movement and distribution, right? It is also present in Tula, which is an airy sign.
Yes.
So it has a lot of movable aspect to it. And it's so interesting that the same Big Dipper on one side points to Dhruva, which is extremely immovable. On the other side, it points to something. I don't know if it's the beauty of cosmic design that is there, but I just wanted to share that interesting concept.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting.
Nice correlation, yeah.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as I say, another query that I had was this Tuban, what is referred to as which is
Yes.
apparently was the Dhruva Nakshatra. Then, is it a Apabhramshu? I mean, the misspelled version of Dhruva, or is it totally different?
Say it again, sorry.
I can answer that. It is not an Apabhramsha. It is a completely different star, right? Like Ajayji said, it's a star in the constellation of Draco, right? Draco is the Greek name for dragon, right? But in our ancient texts, it is referred to as the Shishumara. Shishumara is a dolphin, right? So it is some kind of I don't know, like a water reptile or something like that they have observed, right, as a constellation in the sky. And Tuban is part of that. And Faniraj, if you recollect our earlier classes, I also had a quiz question on the pyramids, right? The pyramids were actually built so the pyramids were built such that these holes through which you see actually pointed to the northern fixed star, right? And they had actually built it in such a way that it's pointing to Tuban. So which means that the pyramids are actually so old that the pole star at that time was actually Tuban, which gives us a clue to how old the pyramids are and how they had aligned it to certain stars in certain directions as well. So short answer to your question, Tuban is a completely different star. It's not a Apabhramsha of Dhruva as you had asked. Yeah, Dhruva is Dhruva. Yeah.
Incidentally,
thank you.
Okay. So next class we'll continue with some of the stories that are still left, and then on the 28th, we are thinking of taking a day off because there's a few different things going on. So we will meet on the 21st. And continue with our stories and not have a class on the 28th.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any assignment on this, Ajayji?
What I'll do is after I finish all the stories, I'll give you an assignment.
Ah,
Okay?
Thank
you.
thank you.
Okay. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.